Good afternoon. I want to welcome all of you to this first ever annual Entrepreneurial Challenge here put on by the Monfort College of Business and the University of Northern Colorado. This is a really exciting time for us, a really exciting event that we're having here today. And so, welcome. It's exciting to see everybody here. My name is Don Goodmanson. I'm the Dean of the Monfort College of Business. I've been here for a year and a half. I still claim that I'm the new guy, although there are a few newer guys that have shown up lately. But I want to also recognize just a couple of people. I want to recognize our president, President Kay Norton, who is here today, and thank her for coming. And she brought her husband along with her today, the mayor of our city, Tom. Thank you very much for coming. We also have our provost here, Abe Haraf. Thanks for coming. And there are many, many other people that I'd like to thank. And I'll list some later on in the program here for the sponsors and the attendees. I know there are some of my Dean's Leadership Council members here as well. I just want to thank all of you for being here and for all of your support today to help us put this event together. Without you, we couldn't have done this. Our business plan luncheon today will showcase 3 panelists who will share their business insight. And then you'll all have an opportunity to ask some questions that will help you in your small business or other adventures. As you know, today is all about business development. Having unique thoughts and ideas has made many business leaders successful. In fact, the capitalist business world we live in has rewarded many an entrepreneur. The panelists sitting on the stage have all enjoyed success and learned from their years of helping people. We're going to enjoy about 10 minutes, right guys? Listening to each panelist talk about the lessons they have learned. After that 30 minutes, you'll have the opportunity to ask a question to each of the panelists, or to any of the panelists. So let's get started. And it's really nice today because, with all the gloom and doom that we hear out there about the economic world today, it's kind of neat to be talking about positive things, about future things, and exciting things. So I'm going to introduce our panelists, and you can find a full bio in the brochure that you have for the event today in the program. Louis Hagler, right here on my left, is the Director of Lending at the Colorado Enterprise Fund. He mentors loan officers and oversees lending underwriters. He's a loan officer for regional businesses, consults with applicants about the business plans, business ideas, provides technical assistance to entrepreneurs. He is an entrepreneur with over 20 years' experience in owning and operating a variety of successful business ventures. Next, let's applaud. Next to him is Mike O'Donnell, Executive Director of the Colorado Lending Source. This organization is the most active small business administration 504 lender in Colorado and one of the top 15 504 lenders in the nation. He oversees 25 employees and is a key resource for over 100 loan officers and their interactions with the SBA. Let's welcome Mike O'Donnell. Our third panel member is Tim Kenny, the Vice President of the Diversified Retail Services at First National Bank. Mr. Kenny joined First National's management team in the spring of 2007, became the Manager of Business Banking for Colorado in 2008. He has more than 23 years of consumer business and commercial banking experience. Okay, give Tim a hand as well. So let's get started, and we'll start right here with Louis.
Just a quick question, if you may. Can you hear me at this point? How many of you are currently in business? Can I just see a show of hands? So it's like a good half. One of the reasons I ask that is that I kind of wear 2 hats today. In addition to being the Director of Lending for Colorado Enterprise Fund, and my information is on a table over there. In addition to that, in the last 16 years, since age 19, and you can tell I'm in my 50s, I have filed a business tax return every year. 5, 6, 7 different kinds of businesses. Often I'm more passively involved in them, but right now I have a cleaning business, so I can sympathize with your travails and trials in this economy. So basically what I wanted to do is spend a couple of minutes talking about our major theme here, and I'll just paraphrase that into how do you get through this economy with your business intact. And then after a few minutes, I'll go into a little bit of more specific information about how a microlender might be able to help your business. The Greeks have a saying, it's actually in the temple of Athena, and it says, roughly translated, all human activities, all human actions are a cycle or a circle. And I think that also applies to the economy, obviously it does, and also applies to your business. The question that most of you probably would like answered, which I cannot, is where are we in that cycle? Are we at the bottom and we're trending back up toward the more prosperous times? Or are we still heading down toward the bottom? What part of that circle are we on? While you and I cannot control that, Chairman Bernanke is not up here, nor is Tim Geithner. We have very little influence over what's happening in this economy. What you can control, though, are many aspects of your business. You can prepare to weather this storm and come out of it even stronger, with a better defined niche, better financial performance, and simply better able to compete in this market. So, a couple of ideas here. Some of you, I'm going to throw out some hypothetical questions. Do you understand your market right now? Do you understand your financial reporting, your key financial critical factors? Do you understand your competition? Speaking of competition, are the big boys and girls out there, the larger competitors that you didn't used to have to worry about, are they competing down for your customers at this time? And again, some of you are nodding your head, but it's mainly hypothetical. A couple of examples. We have a media production client, the Colorado Enterprise Fund, recently had an opportunity to bid on a production contract. They bid $30,000. It wasn't a large contract. Happened to be that someone inside the company that they were bidding on said, you better revise that bid. It's very, very competitive. They revised their bid down to $25,000, which was just above break even, trying to keep their staff busy. The winning bid was $12,000, well below their break even, well below even covering the costs of translating. This was had some translation involved in it. In another case, a company that installs audio and communications in businesses and buildings went from a 78% hit rate on contracts on bidding to a 28% hit rate. And again, what's happening is that the larger competitors, to keep their staff busy and their overhead covered, are bidding down to the smaller competitors. Another hypothetical here. Have you lost pricing power in this market? As your commodity prices and materials prices go up, healthcare, that type of thing, are you unable to pass those costs along to your customers? In this economy, we're seeing a lot of inability or lack of pricing power, inability to pass costs along. Another thing that we're seeing quite frequently, and I think also I would imagine Tim is seeing this especially, well-established businesses with historical track records of profitability did not react quickly enough in the downturn to cut costs and such. And so 5, 10 years or even 2 or 3 years of profitability turned into losses very quickly, making that company unbankable. And now they don't have the funds to grow or to reposition the business. These are just a few things that I'm seeing. I don't have a magic bullet. There is not one out there at this point. A few things, though, that I can throw out to you, that some of our 300 borrowers are actually doing quite well, those that are proactive and aggressive. Number one is reducing overhead or fixed costs. Can you reduce your overhead without getting rid of key employees that produce revenue, for example? Can you reduce overhead without throwing your marketing plan out? Can you reduce overhead without giving up your critical core business competencies? If you can, reducing your overhead will reduce your break-even costs and allow you to compete with some of your larger competitors on price. No one likes to compete on price. You want to compete on your competitive advantages, of course. But in this market, a lot of you are going to have to, including me and my little business, have to compete more on price than you would like to. But reducing overhead can help. In addition, concentrating on your key success factors, such as cost of goods sold. Can you negotiate with your suppliers for better terms, better delivery prices? Direct labor costs. Can you be more efficient in your direct labor? Can you transfer some of your labor from hourly or overhead salaried workers or production labor to more production-based, more incentive-based? For example, a cleaning company that I know of has gone from an hourly rate to paying their employees per square foot, so that it's more of a controllable cost. You have to be careful with labor law that you're not violating minimum wage or something like that. But just some ideas here of how to transfer overhead to some of your into direct costs. One of the key things, though, is to have a financial reporting system that accurately reflects your operation. I think the days are gone when you can afford to produce quarterly or maybe even monthly financial statements. Maybe monthly will get you by, but there may be key performance criteria, key ratios that you have to track on a weekly or at least every couple of weeks basis. Job costing, cost of goods sold, direct labor costs. A third thing I'll throw out here is, can you divide your business up into identifiable profit centers? Not necessarily every activity in your business is going to be profitable. So you need to be able to divide the business up into its activities so that you can analyze each business and determine, is it providing gross margin to cover overhead? Or is it actually taking away too many resources, absorbing too much overhead, distracting too many employees into an activity that may not have a future or that may not be actually making money right now? So, very key, adequate financial reporting and management systems. Otherwise, what you're doing is driving at night in the fog without headlights. It's very important that these financial systems and these reporting systems be up to date and accurate and truly reflect the performance of your company. A lot of you are going to survive this and come out very well. Again, if you make these changes, and a lot of our borrowers are doing that, what's happening is that you're better positioning yourself again for when the economy turns around. Well-established niche, you'll have your competitive advantage, and you'll be a stronger competitor. And so this will be very good for a lot of you. Some of you are probably doing quite well right now, and I'm going to kind of transition into my final topic here. If you are doing well, then you may be looking for lending. It's key to remember that the lending model is based on profitability. The lending model there's not enough margin to cover mistakes. A lot of people call and want to refinance debt or want to get money to overcome some kind of a prior issue that they have. The lending model really is based on taking a profitable company and helping it to become more profitable. That's how it's priced. That's how loans are priced. So if that's something where, if you're in a situation where you can take this difficult economy and you actually have the opportunity to grow and you need a loan, then a microlender might be right for you. Again, I represent the Colorado Enterprise Fund. There are a couple of microlenders operating in this area. Basically what a microlender does is the loans, we make the loans that the commercial banks or even through the SBA, they're not able to make. A little bit more flexible terms, the rates are higher. We look at all of the criteria that a bank would look at. We're just much more flexible. So that's basically my message, is that if you're surviving in this economy, position yourselves the best you can so that when it turns around, and if we are at the bottom, even if we're heading down toward the bottom and not moving up yet, you'll be in an excellent position to thrive and prosper when things do turn around. Thanks.
Good afternoon, and congratulations on actually being here this afternoon. I hope you can understand my southern accent. I don't apologize for it, but I still have a little bit of it. I'm with Colorado Lending Source, and we're a funny sort of organization. We're actually a private, non-profit economic development organization. I've been involved with Colorado Lending Source CLS for the last 10 years, and my approach to that organization is to treat it like a small business. I grew up in small business with my dad and my mum, and I've been involved with pretty much entrepreneurship my whole life. Colorado Lending Source is sort of an extension of that. I don't necessarily come from a banking background, but I am in the lending business. We have, over the course of our 20-year history now, helped more than 1,600 businesses here in the state of Colorado, helped them finance the purchase of primarily owner-occupied commercial real estate. So a lot of people over the years have used or accessed the SBA 504 program. And the 504 loan program is the poor stepchild of SBA-type lending. When most people think of SBA, they primarily think of a loan that a bank will make, which is guaranteed by the agency behind the bank. The 504 loan is actually a good example of a public sector, private sector partnership where a bank will make a loan and then a group like Colorado Lending Source will partner with that bank to make a junior loan to make the property more affordable and more attractive for a small business when they're ready to invest in their own real estate. And over the years in this state, we've worked with a lot of businesses who've outgrown us and will continue to outgrow us. And probably in this part of the world, the one that you might know most of is the New Belgium brewing people who originally got a 504 loan to help them get started with their property. And there'll be many more that we've helped over the years who've become bigger and more successful. I don't, like Lewis, offer you a silver bullet for how to get through this recession. It's a tough recession for Colorado Lending Source to get through, just as it is for you guys to get through. We have, with our 1,100 odd loans that are active at the present time, about 5% of them are struggling fairly hard. We're working with them as best we can to try and get them across the finish line. I personally think that if a business can hang on through this summer, we will start to see some recovery that will get you to the other side. But my little topic today is really to talk about businesses and analysing their core strengths, and perhaps to use CLS as a little bit of an example there. But it was very easy through the first part, the middle part of this decade, for businesses to really not worry about very much anything. There was a lot of business out there. It was very, very easy to get financing. It was very, very easy to expand. And if you did expand, there were lots of customers waiting to buy your products. And so a lot of businesses were created through this decade that will not survive the decade. But those that are actually looking at their core strengths and what they are doing and what they can do and what they can do that is special to that particular business will be the ones that will actually get through this. So focusing on what you're good at is pretty important. Colorado Lending Source, we have a strategic plan, and again, I know a lot of you are preparing business plans or presenting those. As you get past the business plan stage, it sort of turns into a strategic plan, or it does for us. And the strategic plan is my roadmap that gives me at least 5 years at a time how I would like my business CLS to look in the years ahead. And that's actually guided us pretty well through this decade. Not that we've not made mistakes. We have also anticipated ongoing growth, which didn't happen, and so we've had to change streams. But we can see the need to do that and do that early rather than wait for things to get better and quicker. So repositioning your firm or your organisation so that you can emerge from the recession is pretty much key to your success or your ongoing success. And how you do that is going to be different for each of you. But as part of that, it's important that you look a little into the future and get a sense of what the economy might look like or what the business environment might look like. And I come from that area where I like to look at what will happen or what might happen and how that might impact my little business. And there's at least two critical statistics that certainly will be important for you as well. And the first one, which you'll see around you here, is that now 60% of all of the graduates from colleges in the United States are women. And that's changed over a period of time. We're now at that stage where most of the people that are going through higher education in the States are going to be young women. And so how will that impact your business? How will that impact potentially your customer base? And the other statistic that's probably as important for many of you too is that by the year 2012, 1 in 3 Americans in the workforce will be over the age of 50. And we have lots of implications for Social Security and Medicare at the other end, but of course the government has that completely under control, so we won't talk about that. But in the short term, you have to wonder about how you in your workforce, or how you in your employment, how you work with perhaps the workforce that, depending on your industry, might become predominantly more female, or it might be becoming predominantly more elderly. And how does that change your company? So as you position for your core strengths and as you look a little into the future, you should be starting to plan for some of those things now. And another statistic that probably is not as relevant for the day, but if you look 15 to 20 years from now, and if we you look at the wonderful country of China, there will be more unmarried young men in the whole country of China than there are young men in the country of the United States. And you might want to think about what implications that might have for future foreign policy and other issues related to perhaps opportunities if you want to get into other sorts of businesses. But there are some interesting statistics that are sort of popping up all over the country, the state, and the world that may have an impact on where you are. And so sitting back like many businesses did through the first half of this decade and just waiting for the customers to come to them is not going to cut it. The paradigm has changed, the wheel has turned, whatever the expression is you wish to use, but things are not going to be as they were. And for those of you who are young and have never really been through a recession before, you probably won't go through one like this again. But for those of you who've been through the blip, I came to the United States just in time for the 89, 90, 91 recession, which was good. And then we did the other one at the end of the 90s with the .com, and then we had 911, and then we had that sort of extended a little bit, and then we sort of recovered, and then we got too comfortable, and now we're back into this particular mode. So hiring, how your hiring might change is important. What you do to encourage people, things will be a little different. I'm actually taking advantage of the fact that although this is not a year for us to grow as an organisation, this is a year for us to prepare for the future. And so we've actually gone out and hired a bunch of people this year, maybe 2 or 3, mostly young people who have recently graduated from colleges because they can't find terribly great jobs out there on the market. But I see that in a year or two as we emerge from this recession, and we've taken the time to train them carefully, they'll be the future of Colorado Lending Source. And this next generation is really how our organisation will get from 20 years to 30 to 40 years. And I'm going to finish up by just using a little case study. I don't pretend to have gone to Harvard, so I'm not going to use a Harvard case study, but something that you would have picked up in the media over the last couple of months, aside from all the things that happened in Washington, is what's been happening with our friends at Kraft. And Kraft is a very large, fairly successful company, American conglomerate, and they recently, or in January, they successfully executed a takeover of the Cadbury Group in the United Kingdom. The reason why they did that, and in preparation for that, really the whole focus on Kraft at that particular stage is that they wanted to focus on what they were good at. They were able to successfully sell off a frozen pizza division to Nestle, depending on your accent, and that gave them some cash that then helped them with their little proposal to Cadbury. And their first approach on Cadbury was quite interesting. The CEO of Kraft, who's a woman, flew in on a Gulfstream jet to Cadbury and for 20 minutes and made him an offer and wanted a response straight away. And then she flew out at the end of that back to the United States. And that wasn't the best way to approach a bunch of stuck-up English people about how to buy the company. So there's a bit of issues associated with that. But eventually they came to an agreement. And really the prime reason that Kraft wanted the Cadburys was that Cadbury had done a very good job of meshing themselves in emerging markets, particularly Brazil, particularly Asia, where Kraft had not been successful. Kraft had tried to bring the famous Oreo biscuit the Oreo cookie, to China, and also tried to bring it to England without much success. And this is people who don't do their homework. In China, it was considered an extremely sweet and unsavory type of dessert. And if you've ever tasted chocolate from Europe versus chocolate from the United States, you might get a sense of why that is. So Kraft learned from that little foray into southern China, and they basically repackaged the Oreo, took a lot of sugar out of it. So if you could buy Oreos from China, do that, and then drop the price, and it was very, very successful. But Cadbury already knows how to do all of those sorts of things. So Kraft, in their little efforts, has really consolidated their core strengths. They've already had a chocolate division, which is some small chocolates. Now they've got a lot more chocolates, but it fits in perfectly with what they're doing in the distribution centre, especially through convenience type stores. So they now have that huge profit margin and access to a lot of foreign competition, foreign markets they didn't have access to before, and the ability to move on from there. And not that I'm anticipating that you're all Crafts or even New Belgian Brewings out here, but every big business started as a small business. If you look back at the 80s, which wasn't a great recession, not as great as this recession, but a pretty good recession, a lot of companies that are around today started back then. Apple, Federal Express, a few others. And recessions provide lots of opportunities for businesses. Some will go away, And I think that's the cycle of businesses, is that there are some that perhaps will and should go away. But there are some that, especially with the entrepreneurial spirit, will grow and thrive. And they may not be successful in the next few years, but if they plan for the future, then they can be extremely successful over the next decade. So with that, I'll pass it over to Tim. So thank you.
Well, welcome everybody, and thank you, UNC sponsors, participants, and attendees. I just want to let you know, First National Bank is a proud sponsor of the E-Challenge, and I'm pleased to join this panel. Appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to talk about successfully positioning your firm in the new economy. What I want to talk a little bit about plays right into what you've been hearing as a wrap-up, and that is forming collaborative financial partnerships. And what we'll do is I'll walk you through likely and unlikely collaborative partners, making collaborative financial partnerships win-win, and then also we'll cover a small business success story. So I guess I'll start out with what I mean by collaborative financial partnerships. Primarily they include several partners working together on money matters, where each partner has a vested interest. It's that simple, it's not complicated. Where it gets difficult, though, is the effort that has to go into forming them. So it involves a significant amount of investigative due diligence, relationship building, rapport building, and it has to be built on trust. And I think in today's economy, that is what is going to have all of us evolve into more successful endeavors. I think the question becomes, how can conventional lending, credit-enhanced lending, micro-lending successfully position your firm in this economy relative to these types of partnerships? And so here's how. I think when we combine effectively and appropriately these tools from these three areas that we heard about today, and I think everybody has a good idea what conventional lending is. We are constantly reminded how we need to lend conventionally. The idea is that a company can borrow a bit more to finance gaps in equity that can later be filled through an emerging growth cycle that generates additional cash flows, as Lewis mentioned. It's also a company's ability to finance debt a bit longer through an extended amortization period so that you can comfortably repay money. These are basic concepts, but I think very, very important that we have to focus on. I think the number one reason that a collaboration, if you will, between the three of us and other partners, it's leveraging experience and it's leveraging resources from more than one source that will allow a solution to be determined that is probably the most desirable. Going it alone in today's economy and into the new economy is a very difficult way to go. So I'd like to next move on to the idea of who are the valued collaborative financial partners, who are the likely and unlikely candidates. And I guess before I go right through my list, I'd like to make sure that everybody realizes that there's no one that's more important over the other. So if you're a business looking to put together a group of people to help you, there should be a likely side and there should be an unlikely side, but everybody is valued. So I'd start off with the likely side looking like customers and suppliers. Those should be the first people you talk to. And make sure that you are able to have a good dialogue with them and understand what they're looking for. Another good source would be peer group analytics, working with consultants and planners to routinely get together, talk about the metrics that Lewis mentioned, and share those and be accountable to those in a peer group. You'd be surprised through the successes that are shared, the challenges that are shared to the next level that you can get to as a group. And it's good to have some shoulders to lean on from time to time. The third likely area are financial advisors, and I think in that category includes attorneys, accountants, and the three of us on this panel today. Finally, going into the unlikely candidates, I think we've all been focused very much on controlling expenses. We've gotten away from, looking forward at the opportunity that the new economy will bring because we're all hunkered down. And so I would put at the top of the list marketing and advertising professionals to go out and gather information, because information will tell you a lot about the direction you should head. And I know that we have a lot of great sponsors in this category here today. So if you are interested in learning more, I think there's plenty of resources in NCBR and Lyndon, who's here today. We even have some competitors in the media field. And I would suggest that you spend a lot of time educating yourself in trying to determine, as Mike has mentioned, the demographics of female graduates, the aging population, and triangulating all that. I think the other list, or the other part of the list of likely candidates are investors and finally competitors. I think you would be surprised, as we learned with Nestle, that what two competitors can really provide themselves. And I think that those provide some real opportunities when forming these relationships. So the last area that we'll talk about in forming this is making it win-win. You cannot have a collaborative financial partnership among a group of resources unless it's win-win for everybody. So if you're focusing on survival, if you're focusing on increasing market share, if you're focusing on delivering value, improving financial condition, all these have to be in the context of win-win. So back to surviving and increasing market share, seek the market data, take action accordingly. When you're seeking capital, don't only seek money, seek expertise. When you're looking for an idea of exchanging information and ideas, look out for merger and acquisition opportunities. These are all opportunities for you to change the way you do business, and I think that we all have to look in that direction. So I'd like to wrap up then with a success story about two competitors. I'm going to call it a tale of two competitors. Competitor one has a contract bid opportunity that will return the company to pre-2008 revenues. It just happened within the last, let's say, 60 to 90 days. This company's pretty battered by the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. So the competitor decides to approach their bank, and they have the following request. I'd like to increase my revolving line of credit, and on a temporary basis, I need to have my accounts receivable financed at 100%. So after reviewing the general structure of the opportunity, the banker recommends a different course. They recommend looking at a smaller line increase, conventional lending at 75% accounts receivable, and to seek some capital from various sources that we've talked about today. Competitor one decided to go it alone. They're going to shop the market. They're going to look at another bank who may be willing to make an exception in 100% financing. So what is now happening is the clock's ticking on that contract, and they have to make a bid, but first they're going to get busy looking for 100% financing. Competitor two is also in the same contract bid opportunity. They've been impacted by the economy. They've approached their banker with a similar request, and there is one difference. They have a concern in probability. They think that the probability is pretty low that they're going to get 100% financing on their accounts receivable. So the banker and competitor two sit down and they review the contract, and they talk about projections, and they schedule progress payments, and they look at it very in depth. Competitor two and the banker identify options to source capital from various different places. There's the 504 program that was reviewed. There's the microloan opportunity with Colorado Enterprise Fund that was reviewed. There's the 7A option. There's a capital infusion option that's on the table, where the person who owns the company may actually be willing to put some money in. And then there's also some discussion around this contract being held as collateral, taking assignment of the contract. These are all uncomfortable things, because 2 years ago you would put the contract down and come in, and the bank would say, great, let's go forward. But at this point, what is recommended is the bank agrees to increase the line, but remain in conventional lending. the owner of the company looks at putting money in based on all the economics of it, because he had enough money to put in, and he submits the bid with the condition of having it assigned to their bank. The bid was approved. So who wins in this situation? I think obviously competitor 2 wins, the lending source wins, the general contractor wins, the suppliers win, and if there's advisors involved, they all win. They're all adding value, and they're all being paid for. So as I wrap up this scenario, rhetorically, fact or fiction? For those who believe this is fiction, you're correct. Competitor 1 doesn't exist, but does represent a lot of what I think is going on out there and that we've seen as we work through some very difficult times. For those of you who think it's nonfiction, you're also correct. Competitor 2 does exist. Competitor 2 is Newt Welding and Fabrication of Loveland, Colorado. I'd like the owner of Newt, Ray Salee, to please stand up and be recognized as a successful collaborator. Ray's company is currently working on an initial phase of a significant contract at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Boulder, Colorado. It was his willingness to work closely and in a collaborative manner that provided the solution for all of us to win. And I think if we could all move forward in that direction together, we'll get through this a lot quicker. So with that, I'll conclude my comments. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you very much to all the panelists. And now we're open for questions. We have some students that will run around with the microphone. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. Questions? Any questions?
Hello. Questions?
I know we didn't cover it that well.
Well, let me ask, just for a lot of the new entrepreneurs, we talked about a number of different lending approaches to use for many businesses, but if you're just starting up a new business, where's the first place to go and where's the first place to start? Is it at the bank, and where do I go to start? Anybody?
It is at your own bank, in my opinion. Your bank knows your business. You know the loan officer, and you're in a better position to go in there, maybe without applying, so that you don't get a credit report pulled, digging in on your credit, and just have a very frank conversation. Here's the basic idea. Here's what my business is doing. Here's what my collateral is. Here's what I'm going to do with it. Do you think this is something that'll work? And you'll learn a whole lot from just sitting down informally without officially applying to that individual. And ask, does your bank do these kinds of things? What is your lending authority? So you use that initial discussion. You may pay, you may get a loan, but also to just kind of figure out what the lending environment is. And then if that doesn't work, well, where do you think, that they don't want to send you to a competitor necessarily, but you might ask for other ideas about financing. They might send you to a microlender, for example. But I would start with microlending.
I would like to add, I would start with obviously attending a meeting with your banker, being prepared with a business plan, but before you get through the business plan, identify 5 or 6 people who you think would be valuable consultants to give you feedback of whether you're on track or not. I think so many times when we talk about starting a business, if you, again, go onto the internet, find some kind of a form that says this is a business plan, what it looks like, and complete it, you're doing an awful lot of work alone, and I would not recommend that you start alone. So gathering your partners together and getting their feedback and having them be critical in a positive way will help you tremendously and save you a lot of time as well. So.
One of the partners I'd recommend would be the Small Business Development Centre, if you're looking for some independent feedback, or just another person to look at, talk to you about your idea as well. But definitely if you're an established business, start with your existing bank